Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Warrant Officer Class 1, Joanne Davey. We warmly welcome the family of Private Harold Harry Halpin, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We also acknowledge the members of the RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland who are watching this ceremony broadcast across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Thank you. If you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Harold Harry Halpin. Harry Halpin was born in 1898 to Charles and Jessie Halpin of Mudgee, New South Wales. Educated and brought up in Mudgee, he was known as an amiable and extremely popular lad. Harry was one of a large number of children, and his family was noted to be a singularly affectionate one. His uncle was Mr. Cohen of the Mudgee Guardian, and Harry undertook an apprenticeship in the printing department of that newspaper after completing his education. Harry had been a member of the local cadets for 4 years and was keen to enlist in the Australian Imperial Force from early in the war, but his parents refused to give their permission until he turned 19. In the end, Harry prevailed at 18 years and 6 months, enlisting in Bathurst in October 1916 with his parents' permission. He underwent a period of training in Australia before leaving for active service overseas with reinforcements to the 4th Battalion the following November. Private Halpin continued his training in Salisbury Plain in England for several months before joining the 4th Battalion on the battlefields on the Western Front in May 1917. Shortly before his departure for France, he sent a cheerful postcard home to say he was feeling in fine fettle and expected to be shooting big game in France within a few weeks of writing. He was optimistic for the future and said, "We'll all be home before next summer." Yet, as the winter of 1917 and 1918 drew in, the 4th Battalion spent the end of the year fighting in increasingly difficult conditions near the Belgian town of Ypres. In April 1918, shortly after returning from a period of leave in England, Private Halpin was wounded in action. He had been in the front line near Ypres when his battalion came under an enemy artillery bombardment and Halpin was wounded in the leg. He was evacuated to hospital in England and took 2 months to recover. On the 10th of September 1918, the 4th Battalion entered the front line near the French town of Péronne. In the early hours of the following morning, the men were in a trench waiting to attack when they came under an artillery bombardment. Private Halpin was hit once again, but this time he was badly wounded and died about 15 minutes later. He was later buried by his comrades. Today, Harry Halpin is buried in the RSL Communal Cemetery Extension under the words, "To live in hearts we leave behind is not to die." He was 20 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Harold Harry Halpin, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes this evening's ceremony. We'd like to thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial. Wish you all a very good night. Thank you.